Hey everybody, so our next video is on learning target 1.3a. I can write a mathematical model in the form y equals mx plus b. So if you haven't yet learned about y equals mx plus b, you will learn about this in your math class. I'm not going to fully explain how to do it, but I'm just going to show you how it applies to chemistry. So first off, let's start with an example. So here is the example, and I'm going to explain to you how to apply this example to the graph and how to eventually write out an equation in y equals mx plus b format. Let's go ahead and start off reading the description. Two friends want to start taking care of bees so that they can produce their own honey in their backyards. They collected data to see the volume of honey produced by different numbers of bees. Here's a graph that represents the volume of honey produced by different numbers of bees. The slope of the above line is 0.2. So first off, we have a data table over here. So number of bees over here is in the left column. Milliliters of honey is here in the right column. So a couple things to review before we go ahead and jump into y equals mx plus b. This is a graph. This so this graph has two axes, one over here and then another one over here. Okay, this one over here is called the y-axis. This one over here is called the x-axis. Something else that a graph has, we see that there's a line over here and this line over here, and this is the spot where it intercepts with the y-axis. So this spot over here is called the y-intercept. We also call it B, okay? And then last thing is that lines have something called a slope. So this line has a slope to it. If you look over here, we're going to talk about it later, but the slope to this one is 0.2. It's abbreviated, or we use the letter M to stand for the slope. We could also have a line that looks like this. This line would have a smaller slope than the other line. It's not as steep. And then let's say this one, that line would have a greater slope than the original line because it is steeper than the original line. Now I'm going to show you how this data table over here, how these numbers transform into that graph. So in chemistry, in these examples that we're going to be doing, the value in the left column over here is always going to be plotted on the x-axis. The value in the right column is going to be plotted on the y-axis. And I'll explain to you a little bit more about that in just a second. So, this is going to go on the x-axis. If you want to, on the left one, you can write x over there, and then you can write y over there, just to remind you x, y. Okay, so this on the bottom over here is going to say number of bees. And you see the numbers over here are going from 0 to 50. That's what you have over here. You've got numbers that start at 0. They go all the way to 50. Okay, so now the milliliter of honey, you see that there's numbers go from 0 to 10 over here. So then on the y-axis, you're going to write milliliter of honey. Okay, and you see that there are numbers, just to kind of double check, that start from 0. They go to 10, just like in the data table. Okay, just to review how to make a title of the graph, I'm not going to write it here because that's not the focus of this video, but the title of this graph would be milliliter of honey versus number of bees, and you would write that right up over there. Okay, and that would be a review of a previous video. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's get to these questions. What value is graphed on the y-axis? So the y-axis is right over here. this one. So for this one, it would be milliliter of honey. Next question, what is your M value or your slope? So I actually tell you over here the slope of the above line is 0.2, but sometimes you won't have that. So you need to use this data, and you will learn later how to use software on your computer to plot some points from some experiments and get this data automatically generated. So your M over here is listed as 0.2. That is going to be your slope. So you're just going to write 0.2 over there. What value is graphed on the x-axis? So this over here is the x-axis. You have to memorize that. X and the y-axes, they don't change. So that is going to be number of bees. Okay, now it says, what is your b value or the y-intercept? In most of the examples that we're going to be doing, the b value is going to be 0, which means that it starts all the way over there at 0, 0. But to double check, you can look right over here. It says b is equal to 0. So you're just going to go ahead and write 0 in for that. Now, last one. It says write the equation for this line using the variables number of bees and milliliters of honey in y equals mx plus b format. This is going to be the trickiest part. All right, so to start off, this is what I like to do. You don't have to do this, but I kind of do this just to help explain it at the very beginning. Then later on, once you get the hang of this, you don't have to do this anymore. Y equals mx plus b, and just kind of spread it out like this. So now I'm going to plug in these letters with words. So I look over here for y. This is on the y-axis, milliliter of honey. So I'm going to write that for where it says y milliliter of honey. Okay, now I'm going to copy this. It says on top equals, and I'm going to look for our m. We know our m value is 0.2. So we're going to put 0.2 for now. Later on, we're going to put some units on that, but for now, we're just going to write the number. Now for x, we have to write what is on our x-axis. So number of bees is on our x-axis. Remember, this one is always the x-axis. This one is always the y-axis. So 0.2 times number of bees, and then we have plus b. So I could have written it like that, plus b. So m, and this is multiplied by x. That's why I put these in parentheses, plus, and our b is 0. So for the first one, we're just going to put plus 0. In the future, if it's plus 0, you don't need to put that plus 0. All right, so your final answer is milliliters of honey is equal to 0.2 times the number of bees plus 0. So we get milliliters of honey. This is what the y-axis is, so that's why I put this in yellow. Look over here, that's the yellow part over here. 0.2, you find that in pink right over here, just from right over here. It's the slope. X, number of bees, is green, so I put that's from right over here. It's from the x-axis. And finally, plus 0 is plus b, and the b you find in the blue right over here. B is equal to 0. Okay, I hope this helped you out. Please let me know if you guys have any questions, and I know you're going to do awesome once you practice a couple of these. All right, thanks so much for your focus, everybody.